But the game that was hyped up to be a big game, and it was a big measuring stick for both teams. It was an opportunity for the San Francisco 49ers to show that their last 3 games were an anomaly. And for the Jacksonville Jaguars, it was an opportunity to actually have a legitimate win this season. And it was an opportunity for them to put the flag in the ground and say the Jacksonville Jaguars are ready to take that next step. And going into the game, I trusted the 49ers. I liked the 49ers, but I didn't think we were going to see this be a bloodbath and this be a massacre. And when you walk away from that game, the immediate takeaway is 49ers are back in the good graces, and the Jacksonville Jaguars are a fraudulent football team. And when I say fraudulent football team for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and let's start with them, that's not me saying they suck. That's not me saying that they're terrible. That's not me saying that they won't make the playoffs this year. But Jacksonville is kind of the team that, where if you want to equate it to a freshman quarterback, that's a 4 or 5-star recruit in college, and there's so much expectation, there's so much buzz, there's so much hype. And then you get him on the field and you go, yeah, that quarterback is too young. That quarterback is not ready to play. And that's what you're seeing right now with the entirety of the team in the Jacksonville Jaguars. Because the facts are, in their 2 biggest games of the year, and I was talking about this all throughout the week, that in their previous biggest game of the season, they laid an egg. And I said this going back to week 2, where I was out on Jacksonville after their performance up against Kansas City, because we all knew going into this season, Jacksonville was going to win double digits. Jacksonville was going to be in the playoffs. But they were in the playoffs last year. They had the dramatic turnaround a season ago, where they went from back-to-back number 1 overall picks, taking Trevor Lawrence and Trayvon Walker, survived the catastrophe of Urban Meyer, and then they bring in Doug Peterson. They win the AFC South. They go to the playoffs. They win a playoff game, and they lose in the divisional round. But off of that, you put yourself in a situation where people want to see you and people expect you to take the next step forward. And in week 2, they had a vulnerable Kansas City team. A Kansas City team, yes, they were just getting back Chris Jones. They were just getting back Travis Kelce as well. But that offense, even now after 10 weeks, is still not in sync with Kansas City, even with the great Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Travis Kelce. And you were at home for both of these biggest games, and in week 2 up against Kansas City, they laid an egg. In week 2 against Kansas City, they only were able to put up 3 Brandon McManus field goals. Heck, no one loves Brandon McManus more than me. I went to college with the guy at Temple University. But when he's your leading scorer in a game, that's a problem. And think about that. They did not score a touchdown up against Kansas City, and yesterday against the San Francisco 49ers. And they were playing a pissed-off, motivated San Francisco 49ers team. They repeated what happened in week 2, and the Jacksonville Jaguars actually made it worse. They only got 1 field goal. They saw Trevor Lawrence throw 2 interceptions. And once again, in a big game, one of their biggest games of the season, with an opportunity to show that they belong amongst the NFL elite and the top contenders, they didn't even get a touchdown. It's one thing if they would have lost the game. Right? If they would have lost to the 49ers 28-27, bleep happens. Right? We all know the 49ers are a heck of a football team. But to get dragged up and down the field and look like you had no business being on the field, that's something where I will channel what I said back in week 2, and I'll repeat it again. This is just a good team. This team is not ready to take the next step. And up against the marquee opponents, this team does not perform to the level that they are capable of. And this is a fraudulent football team from where we thought they could be prior to the season commencing. And if you want to disagree with it, if you're one of those Jaguar fans that a few years ago were so embarrassed with your football team, you were so passionate, you were dressing up like clowns, and you're saying, oh, Zach, I want to clown you today. Oh, Zach, you're not being fair with my football team. Well, the proof's in the pudding. Go look at your schedule this year. You struggled with Indianapolis in week 1. You beat them. Then you got embarrassed by Kansas City. You lost to the Texans by 20 points. You sparked the Texans' run of dominance as of late. Then you beat the Falcons. Whoop-de-damn-do. You beat the Bills. The Bills, that's not aging like a great victory. And the game was also right in London when you were there for 2 weeks. You beat the Colts. All right, you beat them twice. Let me throw you a parade for that. You beat the Saints. They're no good. You beat the Steelers. Good defense, but the Steelers got nothing on offense. And then up against a marquee opponent in the 49ers, you got embarrassed. You got exposed. You got dominated, and you lost the football game 34-3. So go bounce back this upcoming weekend against Tennessee. Dress up the record and make you 7-3. You'll be a double-digit win football team. No one's taking that away. But I can't believe in Jacksonville. And I can't think Jacksonville is going to do anything great come playoff time, and I can't trust them. Because we've now seen it twice against 2 of the top, 6 or 7 teams in the league. There is a big gap from good to great. And that's even with Kansas City struggling this year. The 49ers struggling this year. You couldn't even show up. It's one thing to win the game. But bare minimum, you should be able to show up against these teams. And it's alarming with how great I believe Trevor Lawrence could be that in the 2 biggest games of the season, he did squat. That entire offense started to look like they were playing offense right now for the New England Patriots. Where you go from being a good team and a good offense to an anemic, putrid, lethargic offense. And it just doesn't add up. Because you have all the pieces there. You got enough in the wide receiving department. You got enough in the running back department. You got enough in the quarterback department. You know the coach is a championship coach. And this is the results that we have. The results are that you're a 6-3 football team, but 2 of those losses carry an enormous amount of weight, and they indicate to me that I can't trust that the Jaguars will be hanging around long come playoff time. So that's the Jacksonville side of it. But when we get to the 49ers, I think a lot of people owe the 49ers an apology. And I know I get often confused as being a hater of the 49ers because of the whole Deebo Samuel interview when he hung up on me. But I defended the 49ers last week. I said the criticism about the 49ers got taken too far. And all I said going into this year, and I'll still stand by this, is that the Eagles are better than the 49ers, and I do believe the 49ers are the second best team in the NFC. That's what I said before the season. Now, through 10 weeks, you could have a healthy debate. It's clear that the Eagles are the best team in the NFC. The record says so. And then you can debate, should the Lions be the second best team, or should the 49ers be the second best team? But if you go through the numbers, and you see where this team was the last 2 years, they have gotten off to slow starts. And in the last 2 years, they have found a way to get it right. They've been to the last 2 NFC championship games where they lost to the Rams and they lost to the Eagles. So just because they got off to a little bit of a shaky start where they were thriving in the beginning of the season, but then when they got to 5-0, they lost 3 games in a row. And 2 of those games, they just got bad bounces. But it was not a mystery to why the 49ers were struggling. It's because in those weeks where they lost, they asked Brock Purdy to be great. Brock Purdy right now, even though he was incredible yesterday, is not in a position to carry a team. He is a part of a system that has one of the more loaded rosters in the NFL. So when Trent Williams is hurt, when Deebo Samuel is dealing with an injury, even though McCaffrey all he does besides yesterday is get in the end zone, even he was banged up. When you see the roster start to get a little bit decimated with injuries, naturally, that's going to level out the playing field. But there is still no doubt in my mind that the 49ers are a contender. The 49ers have a chance to go to the Super Bowl. The 49ers have a chance to win the Super Bowl. But they're just personally not my pick. They're not. In the NFC, as long as Jalen Hurts is healthy, the Eagles, I believe, are the best team in the NFC. So yesterday, you see two different kind of statements that were made. One in a positive way for the 49ers and one in an extremely negative way for the Jacksonville Jaguars. The 49ers, I don't know if I want to say they put the flag in the ground, but the 49ers basically did the Undertaker gif yesterday, or the Undertaker meme, where it's like, all right, we're back from the dead. We have popped back up from the tombstone, from the casket. We're alive. We're well. And they do have a presence to them where they could haunt you. And they could haunt many teams in the NFL. And it wasn't just that the 49ers won yesterday. It was how they won. With Brock Purdy looking great. With McCaffrey dominant in the run game. George Kittle going for over 100 yards. Debo returning. Trent Williams. It wasn't just it wasn't just that they won, it was how they won. And then the most impressive thing was the defense. The defense holds Jacksonville to a lousy 3 points. Think about that. So that's a statement yesterday by the 49ers. We are more so the team that was 5-0 compared to the team that lost 3 in a row. And then the other statement that was made by the Jaguars is we're solid. We're good. We can look the part at times. But when we go up against the big boys, when we go up against Kansas City, when we go up against the 49ers, we're just not there yet. And I just wonder with Jacksonville, how much is maybe a mental problem? Because we all know they have the talent. We all know they're a good team. And when you see a performance like yesterday, and this is coming from someone that laid the 3 points with the 49ers, it doesn't make sense how you could play that poorly in your two biggest games of the year. And I understand, hey, this team has limitations, but they don't have limitations that would suggest to me that they shouldn't show up in the two biggest games of the year. They're not better than Kansas City. They're not better than the 49ers, but it shouldn't look like a game where the men are the 49ers and Chiefs and the Jaguars are like a bunch of little boys. That shouldn't be the case. You should be able to sit at the grown-up table and show that you belong, even though if you're not at the head of the table. But after watching what happened in week 2 and watching what happened in week 10, it is clear that the Jaguars right now, they may be the head at the kiddie table, but they're not close to sitting at the adult table. And they'll be in the playoffs. They'll be in the dance. Maybe they win a game at home in the playoffs, assuming they still win the division. But I don't see them going to conference championship weekend. I don't see them taking that next step. And they had the potential to do that before the start of the season, especially with the momentum that they built last year, doing the unthinkable, making the playoffs, doing the unthinkable, coming back against the Chargers, and also finding a spot in the divisional round and keeping it competitive, keeping it close against the eventual world champion Kansas City Chiefs.